Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 45 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Well, I do want to go ahead and apologize in advance. First of all, Raptor is indisposed this evening. So because of that, you have to go ahead and only listen to me. So I apologize for that ahead of time for anybody who was hoping to see Raptor, but he will be back on the next podcast that we do together. Now, that being said, I have a topic that it's really kind of close to me in regards of how I feel about both Sentai and Power Rangers, as well as the merchandising aspect of the series. So what we're going to go ahead and talk about tonight is what is described, at least on Ranger Wiki, as collectible devices. Now, what do I specifically mean by collectible devices? Basically, you know, things like the Ranger keys, Gosei cards, engine souls, the Beast batteries, things of that nature. And what I want to go ahead and discuss is, first of all, their overall impact into the series and, you know, how they work for, you know, story contrivances, story conveniences, things along that nature, and how they manage in the real world as being products that Bandai is selling and their strategy of doing that. But before we start, let's go ahead and talk about the in-show aspect of it. And what kind of really bothers me is when you watch the older Sentai and Power Rangers, let's take Mighty Morphin and Zyuranger for a second. When Jason pulls out his Power Blaster, he shoots and shoots and shoots. Never runs out of ammo, never runs out of power, is able to shoot all he wants. Although for some reason he decides to use the sword instead, but nevertheless he continues to go ahead and use his blaster, never having to go ahead and recharge it. And in the context of Sentai and Power Rangers, this is true for a number of the series, but only recently have they gotten to the point where their weapons are consistently repowered through batteries, through cards, not only for power, but for different attacks. Now, this really kind of started when Go-Onger came about, because their whole gimmick was the engine souls, which are used primarily to call the Zords, make them larger, and contain the personalities or the true souls of their engine buddies. The engine buddies like Speedor, Bear RV, Busan, and so forth and so forth. And what they would do in the series is like they would actually have points where they would be using their weapons, but then the Manta guns, which are charged by the engine souls, would run out of power. And thus they would have to go back and recharge the batteries, or the souls, excuse me, recharge the batteries in the souls, and go back out and use them again. And this was, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a flaw for the Go-Ongers, and to a lesser extent, the engine cells and RPM, but it was something I always looked at as being rather cumbersome, something that kind of held them back. Because, you know, the thing about Power Rangers is that Power Rangers is not an army in the sense that most armies are, particularly like, say, the United States Army. Because, you know, in most armies, and we'll use the United States Army for example, they have to take extra ammunition out with them. If they run out of bullets, they have to reload on the battlefield, and every second counts when you have to go ahead and reload. That has never been an issue for Power Rangers or Super Sentai, again, up until Go-Onger, in which now power is an important thing. You have to conserve it, you have to be careful with it. And, you know, I have mixed feelings regarding that, because Go-Onger and Kyoryuger are the exact same way. If we go forward to the batteries and Kyoryuger, you know, they have to keep those consistently charged. They're always packing at least 3 of them on themselves at any given time. No more than 3, because their belts, their buckles only hold about 3 in there. And they have to pick the right combination. They got to make sure there's enough power. They just can't go blasting, without thinking about having to conserve it. And that just, again, it's just a little bothersome for me that they have to think about conserving power. Now, is an interesting story point that you have to go ahead and conserve resources? Yes, depending on how you're doing it. But the shows like Go-Onger and Kyuryuger don't necessarily say why they have to go ahead and recharge. I know there's probably some sort of explanation that's buried in there or something you can reasonably come up with. But I just don't like the idea of the Kyuryugers having to change batteries in their guns every time they run out of ammo, basically. I guess in that way it gets too much to the real world and becomes too cumbersome to me. And to that, let's also take a look at the other kind of collectible devices, primarily secret discs and Gosei cards from Shinkenger and Goseiger, respectively. Now, the thing about these that are different is that Shinkengers really don't use any type of blaster weapons, with the exception of the bow and arrow and the cannon that's formed from the sword and things like that. But the thing of their secret discs is they're supposed to put the discs on there, spin it to charge it up, and then it would either transform their sword into a weapon of some sort or give them some sort of special attack. The thing that bothers me in this case, different from the batteries, is that it just seems to take too long to go ahead and do something. And the same thing with the Gosei cards, because the Gosei cards have different abilities, where they make you invisible, erase somebody's mind, send rocks flying at somebody. You have to open it up, pick the right card, insert the card, close it to activate it. It just seems to go ahead and take too long. There really seems to be, in the recent Sentai series, this slowdown point where they're trying to make it more difficult for the characters. And I don't necessarily know why that is from a story perspective. Again, let me get into the merchandising here a little bit later. But in the sense of the story, you know, I know the cards and the discs all have a backstory to them, as to, you know, that they're like different power sources, and they're forged in different ways. It just kind of bothers me that, you know, if I'm, you know, Shinken Green and I'm out there and I want to do a special attack, I have to open up my belt, get the right discs, which I hope is in there because I don't think the discs actually teleport, insert it in and spin it, and then attack. Whereas if you're like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you just attack. You charge your weapon however they would do it, attack, you're good to go. You know, or like in O-Ranger and Zeo, you pull out your blaster and you shoot. Now it's like you pull out your blaster, open up your belt, put in the engine soul, close it, then shoot, and hope you don't run out of ammo before the enemy goes down. So whatever they're trying to do in the series now is it seems that they're trying to make it more difficult for our heroes. Because again, from Go-Ranger on up, there really hasn't been an issue about energy conservation, having to power up your weapons. The fact is, you just attack. The only thing that takes a long time to happen is if you need to transform your weapon from a blade to a sword, if you need to do the power blaster, or summon the cannon or anything, which is all reasonable. But in these contexts, it's just really difficult, and I think it's really bothersome to expect them to be on the battlefield, change out their weapons so quickly. And of course, you know, we haven't really gotten to it in the series yet where they have to retreat because they're completely out of power, they're completely out of batteries. I don't recall seeing that in any episode of the mentioned series that I've made. Now, things like Ranger keys, they at least have a practical purpose, is that that's where the power is, it's stored in this form, and they have to unlock it to use it. That at least makes a little bit of sense to me. And not to mention, well, I mean, it's a contrivance that they're keys in the first place, and they just happen to have morphers that fit into them. But again, I discussed this in my Go-Kaider review, and how I just kind of feel about the whole greater power aspect and things like that. But, you know, let's look at the obvious here. The reason all these were made was that they could be collectible items in which Bandai could sell. And, you know, I don't know exactly how things are done over at Toei, what influences go where and things like that, but as my understanding, at least when they originally started the series, that Go-Onger had the backing of a toy company financially to where they could do a show and tie in basically the toy aspects. Now, that leads me to believe that and much other data that I've researched is that it seems that a lot of it starts with the toys. They say, we're going to do this year, this will be the motif, these are the weapons. Because it's kind of like, you know, the original Ninja Turtles, the Playmates would not make a toy line of the Ninja Turtles off the comic books, but they would do it if it was turned into a television series, and thus the 87 Turtle series was created. And there was a lot of, from Playmates as far as what was going on in the story. This episode, you had to introduce the mutant module. This episode, you had to introduce this character. You had to do this in this episode because of a recent toy that they had released or they were going to go ahead and release. Now, that to me sounds like very dangerous business because it could sacrifice storytelling. I believe the same thing is happening over with Bandai and Toei, in which they introduce or create these toys and then, you know, say, hey, writers, you have to introduce this. We're making a toy of this. This is going to go ahead and come out and things like that. Now, I can point to several examples where that is not the case for specific things that we see in the show, but I get the feeling overall that's probably what's happening, and unfortunately that's sad to think about. Now, to that point, it makes sense to them that they're creating these things that can be collectible. They can package with the toys or package separately, in which you can go out and, you know, gotta catch them all, basically. And I just have a few criticisms regarding some of their policies. Now, I don't collect all the collectibles. For those of you who don't know, I do collect the Zords. That's my big thing, is I like collecting the Zords. And I primarily collect them, at least since 2007, from Japan, because you all know my stance on Bandai of America. That being said, Bandai of Japan is not 100% perfect. For example, let's take a look at Go-Onger again with the Engine Souls. When you buy the primary Megazord for Go-Onger, it comes with the red Zord, the yellow, and the blue. But it would only come with one Engine Soul, the red Engine Soul. You would have to go out and buy the Highway Buster to get the Bear Engine Soul, and the Manta Gun to get the Lion Engine Soul. And then later down the line, where they did the Train Megazord, it came with the Crimson Soul, but in order to get the other two, the white and the light blue one for the Triceratops and T-Rex, you'd have to buy the Can Bar. And that's where I kind of have a problem with what Bandai Japan is doing. In order to complete your primary collection, which, you know, you can collect anything that you want. And I realized long ago I can't collect every single thing they make. So I limit it to just Zords, as that is one of my favorite aspects, if not my favorite aspect of Power Rangers and Sentai are the mechas, the robos, the Zords, whatever. I cannot complete my Zord collection unless I have to go out and buy these other products. And that, to me, is bothersome. Now, they do the same thing with the Beast batteries. When you buy the Zords, you know, each Zord comes with its individual Beast battery. And that's actually pretty good, because when you buy the Triceratops, the Stegosaurus, and the T-Rex, they come with all three Beast batteries, red, pink, and blue. But those of you who follow Q Ranger, there are 23 batteries, so every additional battery you have to buy with the individual set. So if you want to get Beast Battery 20, which I forget what's on that, you have to buy the hoister, you have to buy the gun, or you have to go buy this extra sword, and things are not related to what you're trying to go ahead and collect. Now, Bandai did come out with a Beast Battery set, which I now own, but that's like $100 in Japan, and if you're living in America, $150 because they want to jack up the price for you for being overseas. So I don't understand the whole point of basically diversifying everywhere it goes. Now, when we take a look at the Ranger keys, however, now they don't connect to the Zords at all, but at least the thing they do is they do sell it in sets. You want Battle Fever J, buy the Battle Fever J set. You want Flashman, get the Flashman set. You want Geiki Ranger, get the Geiki Ranger set. which is how it should be. You should be able just to get the sets and go. And where I'm having a problem now with Bandai of America's Ranger keys, oh, surprise, I have a problem with Bandai of America. What they've been selling so far, and maybe this will change down the line, and I hope it does, but what they've been selling so far is 2 Ranger keys at a time. You'll have Lost Galaxy Blue and Lost Galaxy Green as a set, just 2. Then, if you buy this Zord, oh, then you'll get the Zeo Ranger key. Or you buy the Lion Wild Force Zord, then you'll get the Wild Force key. And it's telling me that even if all you wanted to do was collect the Ranger keys, you're going to have to buy other stuff. You're going to have to buy other crap to get the thing that you want. And I don't understand why Bandai of America and Bandai of Japan does not just have direct access. If all you want is the Barry, if all you want is the Soul, if all you want is the Ranger key, just give us that. And then don't sell them individually, sell them as a pack that's affordable. Again, the Beast Barry set that they let out, that's $150 for us Americans. Or you can go over to Japan and get each individual set of weapons with the Barry, but that's going to cost you at least $30 a set. So it's really backwards, and there's no consistency in it. Again, the only thing that seems to be working right would be the Ranger keys. Now, I'm not talking about like the metallic keys or anything like that, but, you know, just a standard set. If all you want to get is the Go-Onger Ranger keys, just go buy the pack. That's all you need to do. And I know there are a couple of times where they might have an entire set of all 200 keys, which is good too, but of course, you know, the price with it, and that's the bigger issue there. So to bring this back, you know, I'm going to have to say that I don't really like collectible devices for both practical reasons within the story and as a collector of the toys and other merchandise. I think I made my point clear as far as how I feel about it in the collectibles and so forth. And the big issue with the collectibles, again, is the pricing. You have to buy other stuff with it. They're not as a single set. That's the big issue that I have. As far as a story concern with it, I just don't think that our heroes should be hindered by having to charge up, replace ammunition, or pull out cards or secret discs or whatever it is to go ahead and charge their weapons. I think where we've gotten away from is the simplicity of it all. Because again, look back, let's just compare Power Rangers now. Look at Mighty Morphin and let's look at Megaforce. What's the main difference in their weapons? Well, Megaforce has to use the power cards to not only morph, but to summon their Zords, to power up their weapons, to send out boulders and tornadoes. Excuse me. What did the original Power Rangers do? Power Sword, and it appears in their hand. And then, I need the Tyrannosaurus Dinozord. Just raise their hand to the sky, and there it was. There was a simplicity about that to where it wasn't so cumbersome. It flowed. It was very simple. That's what I want to say. Is it's very simple, and I miss that simplicity. But it seems that Toei, Saban Brands, whoever, is bowing down to Bandai, both Japan and America, because of what they want to do with selling. Now, obviously, this is good money for them, and they take advantage of idiots like me, of course, to go ahead and buy them. You know, Tokyo Ranger, the thing I like about Tokyo Ranger in this aspect is that the collectible devices are the trains themselves. I like the idea of the Zords being collectible. Because again, that's what I focus on, and that's just from my viewpoint. But I mean, like, I didn't even bother getting the secret discs or the Gosei cards or anything like that. If it's not related to the Zord, I'm not gonna get it. And just for record, I only own one Ranger key, which I got for free when I ordered something from Japan. And for the record, that is a Sun Vulcan Gashapon key. So for those of you who were curious about that. But it seems inevitable. Collectible devices is just naturally the way this series is going to continue for the foreseeable future. maybe what will happen is one day the toy sales will be so horrible that they won't continue them. Because also, look at that gap between Go-Kite and Kyurager. What do we have? We had Go-Buster, which was the easiest toy line to collect in terms of Zords, because they didn't have 50 million different interchangeable Zords. They had a set number in which you could collect. That you didn't have to buy batteries. In addition, you didn't have to buy souls to make them make noises. You didn't have to do any of that stuff. And I appreciated that. Something simple and simplistic like that is what I want. But with Kyurager, because Go-Buster didn't do so well, they decided to bring more traditional Sentai elements back, and it looks like that the collectible devices is now becoming a mainstay of the series for the foreseeable future. But, those are just, my thoughts on the matter. You guys tell me, what do you think of the idea of collectible devices? Are they good? Are they bad? Do you wish they were simple? Do you like collecting them? And how do you feel primarily about the distribution of the toys in, America and Japan? I definitely want to hear other people's opinions on this. So, guys, I want to thank you for listening to me tonight. You enjoy the rest of your evening. And the tavern is now closed.